Welcome to Education Insight. I'm Lacey Kendall. The last few years have been tumultuous for most everyone. Lockdowns, drought, the protests and shootings, bullies, the pandemic, and politics. But no one has been hit harder by these issues than our kids. They've become the number one group to commit suicide or a mass shooting. And as the news reports this frequent story, there are always calls for more mental health assistance to help them. Today we're looking at how well our inland Southern California kids are doing with two experts who are on campuses leading major efforts to help our kids stay mentally healthy, happy, and productive. Jason Tate is the host of the popular podcast Tate Talks, an expert on student mental health and wellness who serves students throughout the Coachella Valley. He joins us later in the show. Another incredible music student shares her work with us. But first, we meet Dr. Lexi Backstrom. As the administrator of student behavioral health and support for the Riverside County Office of Education and the mental health care spaces, she and her team are working with students who are suffering every single day. Dr. Backstrom, welcome to Education Insight.
Thank you so much for having me.
Could you tell us a little bit about CareSpace?
Absolutely. So CareSpace is part of our superintendent's mental health initiative at Riverside County Office of Education. And in summary, we provide free mental health and related services to anyone and everyone across Riverside County. So that includes our students, our families, our schools, and our community members.
So why is it so important to have a safe space for students in particular to discuss mental health challenges?
Well, first and foremost, I think we all need this.
Yeah.
When we're stressed out, we need a place where we can go to be calm, to relax, to recharge, and our students need the same thing. This is especially important for them because not all of our students have safe spaces or someone they can talk to outside of school. So having CareSpace and other services that our students can come to and giving them that one person or multiple people that they can trust and talk to makes all the difference for them.
What kind of problems are kids dealing with right now?
Our kids are going through so much right now, and we see this across the state in Riverside County. A lot of reports of anxiety and depression. Specifically, we've also heard that students are struggling to figure out where they fit in schools, within their family dynamics. Some of our kids are telling us, they've lost family members and friends as a result of the pandemic. So there's the struggle with grief. And then we're also seeing a lot of academic struggles. As we all know, we had a lot with distance learning, and most of our students didn't do well in that type of environment, so they're behind academically. So all around, we're looking at academic challenges, behavioral challenges, and mental health challenges.
So could you describe how CareSpace is helping kids to deal with those kinds of struggles?
Yeah, absolutely. So CareSpace really serves two functions. As you heard earlier, I oversee our behavioral mental health services for alternative education. So for our students on our campuses, it's that safe place that we talked about earlier for students to be able to relax, hang out, talk with a professional. Our students specifically in Alt-Ed have reported that they really enjoy the CareSpace because it provides them with that safe place. They've also reported that they appreciate the colors and the vibe that CareSpace offers, and the snacks and the video games and the bean bags and the ping pong tables and all the other games we offer. So that's kind of one side of it is, it's that space for our students within our campuses, but it also serves all of Riverside County, as I mentioned. And so it's helping kids deal with their struggles because it's allowing more access for more students across Riverside County to receive these free mental health and related services, such as counseling. And what's nice about CareSpace is we offer in-person services and telehealth services. So our students can talk to a professional from the comfort of their home if they prefer.
I think that's especially unique that CareSpace isn't just for students, but it's so all-encompassing. Who is your most frequent clientele?
So our students are in CareSpace pretty often in regards to lunch times and after school, or if they have a meeting with their counselor. But, as you said, Lacey, we serve everyone across the county. So if you live in Riverside County and you're a student, family, school, or community, we're offering you services for free. And so when looking at our data, students do access our services the most. And again, that's kindergarten through 12th grade or higher education students, but also our parents. We've seen a huge increase in parents wanting services because the pandemic didn't just impact our students. It impacted our parents and our adults and our educators as well. And so parents and families have used our services quite a bit as well.
Back in fall of 2020, the mental health initiative was introduced. And what was that meant to accomplish, Doctor?
Yeah, absolutely. So we serve a wonderful superintendent here at Riverside County, Superintendent of Schools, and that's Dr. Edwin Gomez. And he saw the mental health crisis, and that's why he set forth this initiative. This is actually one of 4 of his initiatives that he set forth, the other ones being literacy by 5th grade, equity and inclusive practices, and financial literacy. So the goal really of the superintendent's mental health initiative was to look at addressing the needs of the whole student beyond the classroom. So we know in education, we obviously serve our students academically, but we wanted to make sure that we're supporting and expanding mental health services and programs across all of our Riverside County school districts. And CareSpace is one way that we've been able to provide that support. And with our support from our Riverside County School Board of Education, our cabinet, and all of our division leadership teams, we've been able to accomplish that throughout this county with 10 locations.
You're listening to Education Insight. Dr. Backstrom, initially when I heard about CareSpace, I thought that was only one, but there are many, aren't there?
Yeah, we actually started with one. Got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
But again, like I mentioned, we have an amazing team here at RCOE, and our Operational Support Services Division has helped us to build these locations across our county. So we actually, in partnerships with Riverside Latino Commission and Riverside University Health System Behavioral Health, as well as our Boys and Girls Club of the San Gorgonio Pass, we've built 10 locations across our county. So we have 3 locations in Riverside. We have 2 locations in Paris, 1 location in Murrieta, 1 location in San Jacinto, 1 location in Banning, 1 in Indio, and 1 in La Quinta. And again, I'll just keep saying it because I want everyone out there to hear it. If you live in Riverside County, you can receive these CareSpace services for free. You can just go on our website at www.rcoe.us/CareSpace. And if you need assistance, you can always call us at 951-276-CARE, which is 2273.
So let's talk about the services that CareSpace is offering to our students. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, I would love to. So we have 8 services here through CareSpace. And if you're familiar with MTSS or the tier system, we offer services at a Tier 1, a Tier 2, and a Tier 3 level. Tier 1 looks at inclusive for everyone. Tier 2 is kind of more of a niche group that might need those services. And Tier 3 is highly individualized. And so when we're looking at our Tier 1, our universal services, 3 of the services that we offer, one of them is our classroom presentations. So again, if you complete a referral on our website, our staff will come into your classroom at your school site, and we can provide classroom presentations for your students. Some of the topics we've done presentations on are resiliency, or overcoming obstacles, coping with stress and frustration, LGBTQ+, mindfulness, everything that our students could need, especially amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. Another Tier 1 service that we offer is staff training. And so, again, completing a referral on our website, we can come to your location or offer telehealth. And some of the staff trainings that we've done include mental health education, trauma-informed services. And again, all of these services are completely free. I'll talk a little bit more about our parent workshops later, but again, just to kind of give you that context, that's another service that we offer. And so those really encompass our Tier 1 services. We do have a new service that I'm excited to share before we jump on to Tier 2. And that is our service called Lucky Paws, Paws standing for Pets Our Wellness Support. We've recently partnered with the Department of Animal Services in Riverside County. And through generous donor support, we are able to bring your pet to you absolutely free. All adoption fees have been waived. And so again, if you complete a referral on our website, we can bring a pet into your family, whether it's a dog or a cat or any type of animal, because we know research shows that there is a strong linkage between animals and mental health. Mm-hmm. So we also offer, as I mentioned, our Tier 2 services. That really looks at our family counseling. which has been a huge asset for our students and families. Because as I mentioned, the COVID pandemic didn't just impact individual students, it impacted the whole family. We also have our K groups. So these are groups specifically for our 16 to 25-year-olds that we offer through our RUHS Behavioral Health Partnership. And they have groups such as book clubs and yoga and art group and all sorts of different things. And then, of course, we have our most intensive services, which is our individual counseling. And then because we're mental health and related services, we also offer resources and referrals. So if you have a situation and you need help with housing or food or other linkages in your area, you can still complete a CareSpace referral and we will send you resources to support what your needs are in your area.
What are the qualifications of the folks? I mean, what are their backgrounds? When a student comes in and they say, I'm really struggling with my mental health and I need some help, what kind of a person is going to greet them and start working with them?
Yeah, that's such a great question. So all of our counselors and our social workers, they're either licensed or associates with the appropriate level of supervision. So that could be they're a marriage and family therapist, professional clinical counselor, or social worker. And all of our providers through the Riverside Latino Commission and Riverside University Health System Behavioral Health have extensive experience providing mental health and related services to students, families, schools, and the community.
Dr. Backstrom, there are a lot of different kinds of programs popping up, trying to help our students with mental health. So how is CareSpace unique? Think about that for just a moment as we take a break. Our guest is Dr. Lexi Backstrom of the Riverside County Office of Education and the Mental Health Care Spaces. We're talking about student mental health locally, how our kids are doing, who's helping them, and what their biggest issues are. We'll have more in a moment. This is Education Insight. Welcome back to Education Insight. In the past 18 months, there has been a greater calling for mental health help for our school kids, especially considering the lockdowns and school shootings, loss of their major celebrations, and the many financial stresses so many have experienced. That's why we're talking about student mental health here in the inland areas and what progress is being made. Our guest is Dr. Lexi Backstrom, Administrator of Student Behavioral Health and Support for Riverside County's Office of Education. Dr. Backstrom, before the break, I asked, how is it that the care spaces are uniquely different?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. And actually, that's one of the questions our school districts really wondered too when we launched about a year ago. So CareSpace does provide free mental health and related services, which a lot of our school districts do. And when we developed CareSpace, we weren't seeking to replace the services and supports that are already in place because our school districts in Riverside County do a beautiful job of supporting our students and families. But again, just knowing the mental health crisis that is raging through our nation, our state, and of course our county, we wanted to come alongside our districts and provide even more support. So this is another resource for students, families, schools in the community. A lot of our districts, they offer classroom presentations and staff trainings and parent workshops and individual counseling, but they're pretty impacted. And so it's really nice that counselors can complete a referral for our services and we can go do the classroom presentation. Or students that need individual counseling, they can get it through us as well. So some of the services, it's really nice to be able to work alongside our districts and support them where we can. And then we offer some services our districts don't offer. And so part of that is family counseling. That's been wonderful. And as I mentioned, our Lucky Paws service, which I've heard a couple of the districts are pretty excited about, and their students are waiting for their animals. So Again, if you're interested in adopting, please fill out a CareSpace referral so that we can connect you with your lucky paws.
So today's program is all about our students here in inland Southern California and the help that's being offered or isn't being offered around the area to try to help them with mental health, especially coming out of the lockdowns, the pandemic. As you mentioned earlier, so many issues, deaths in the family, and so forth. So let's talk about the success in dealing with these issues that your 10 CareSpace facilities have experienced.
Yeah, no, and that's so important. And, we just have the best team at the Riverside County Office of Education, and it has taken a lot of teamwork, not only with our own district, but with our community partnerships, as well as our school districts to get where we are today. So I'm excited to share some statistics with you about our impact. And so within our first year, because we're just wrapping up our first year, we've opened 10 locations, as you heard. We've served over 1,500 individuals in Riverside County through our CareSpace services. So that means they've completed referrals and they've accepted services. We've provided over 2,600 counseling sessions across our county. We've attended over 20 events, from a TK Roundup in Menifee to Talkowitz High School at Hemet Unified. And through those events, we've served an additional 400 individuals. We've kept track of our website, how are people coming to it? What are they looking for? We have over 5,000 unique website page views. And really proud to say that we have served 23 of our Riverside County school districts in our first year. Overall, we've increased emotional and mental wellness for students and families. And a couple of highlights is Dr. Gomez, our Riverside County Superintendent of Schools, presented CareSpace at the Student Mental Health and Wellness, How Diverse Models Best Serve Kids and Communities during a state legislative briefing. So the state wants to hear what we have to say, and that's really, really exciting. And I'm also currently working with our government relations team here at RCOE as part of the Child Youth Behavioral Health Initiative to continue to push out mental health and behavioral health services across not only our county, but our state as well.
Dr. Backstrom, you mentioned earlier that you also help the parents. What types of workshops or classes, what kind of support do you offer for them?
Yeah, our parents, we love our parents. We love offering parent workshops. And again, these are free for everyone in Riverside County. We offer a variety of monthly parent workshops. Some are offered in the morning, some are offered in the evening times. Again, it's all free on our website at www.rcoe.us/CareSpace under our Parent Workshops tab. And our Public Relations and Communication Services team does a beautiful job of getting those flyers each month. And so our parent workshops range from topics such as positive ways to deal with stress and anger, communicating with respect, depression and anxiety in children. That was a really well-attended workshop because, again, as we heard, that's one of the biggest struggles our kids are facing is depression and anxiety. We also have topics such as building self-worth, understanding feelings, know the signs, suicide awareness, managing stress, positive praise. And again, we also work with our school districts to customize parent workshops. So if you're a school district out there and you want your students and parents to access our services, they can always complete a referral. But districts, you can complete a referral too if you want us to customize parent workshops. And I know Alfred Unified has taken advantage of that, and they've been really happy with the services our providers have supported with.
So if we're going to build happier kids, what would you say is the number one thing that we all need to be doing more aggressively to help them with their mental health issues?
Ooh, one thing. I mean, there's so many things we can be doing to support our students and families. But I think if I had to just pick one thing, I would say be the caring person in their life. Be that person that believes in those students. Be that person that talks to them, that listens to them. Just be that caring person in their life because you don't know how much of a difference you can make.
Yeah. Very good. Dr. Lexi Backstrom has been our guest. She's the Administrator of Student Behavioral Health and Support for the Riverside County Office of Education, where she oversees behavioral health services for alternative education and for CareSpace. Dr. Backstrom, thank you so much for sharing in the conversation today.
Thank you so much for having me. And I really appreciate the opportunity to share about all the great work we're doing across the county, and hope that more people will access our services so we can continue to serve and do great things for mental health.
You're listening to Education Insight. It's on the news nearly every night. Mass shootings, suicides. The numbers show that our kids are the most likely to commit either. And our politicians argue that there is not enough mental health resources for them. As we were preparing this program, California Governor Gavin Newsom announced a $4.7 billion investment in such services for anyone under 25 years old. We wondered what's already being done here in our inland region and who's leading those efforts. Jason Tate is one. He's an expert in student mental health and wellness for young people in the Coachella Valley. His team has intervened, advocated, and counseled thousands of kids and teachers and staff members with mental health struggles ranging from minor to very serious. Jason, thanks for joining in on this conversation today.
Thank you for having me on the program today, Lacey. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Could you describe, first of all, your role as a wellness specialist and the services that you provide students?
Certainly. So my main role really is to serve the staff and students on the campus at CV High School as a wellness specialist. I provide and bring in years of hands-on experience in the training in mindfulness, nutrition, and movement. And I work one-on-one with students. I work in small groups with students, large classrooms, and even multiple classrooms together. Similarly with staff as well. I work one-on-one with staff, in small group with staff members, and then in large group with staff members as well.
Who would you say is struggling the most right now? Would that be your staff members or would it be the students?
Honestly, both. We're all, I've been a classroom teacher for 17 years now, and that transition of moving to an online version through the distance learning platform with the COVID shutdown, it really challenged us as educators to be able to teach from home and to teach digitally with no faces. I struggled with it. I know a lot of teachers struggled with it and students as well. And so coming out of that, the profession itself is a challenging profession. And there's very little support. We're going to talk about support for students, but there's even less support for staff members in this very challenging career as well. So I'd say both.
You're quoted as saying that movement, nutrition, and mindfulness are the three main pillars of wellness. So why are those so important to student mental health?
Personally, I've experienced, I believe that our overall health and wellness really falls into these main pillars, specifically nutrition being what we eat and drink, mindfulness being what we say and what we believe, and the exercise component, the movement component, how we move and how we breathe. I also believe that mindfulness, or the mental health pillar, is the most important of all three because it's the pillar that makes the other two possible. You can have all the knowledge of a nutrition expert and an exercise scientist, but if your mental health is in disrepair, you might not make the best food choices, and you definitely won't make the right exercise choices as well. And for too long, we focused only on diet and exercise. And most people know they should exercise more and eat healthier. But what we haven't focused on is the mental health and the underpinning of all of that and what makes it all possible.
How do you teach that to the folks that you work with there in Coachella Valley, to students and to teachers? How do you get them focusing on their own movement, nutrition, and mindfulness?
I love teaching by doing. And so when it comes to movement, I've done small group with the staff members. In fact, I spent the entire day today doing professional development for teachers at CV Unified School District, offering them opportunity to learn some of the skills and techniques that you can use in your classroom every day to get students up out of their seats, moving and increasing blood flow throughout their body, showing the science of how this improves learning and memory. Also teaching mindfulness to teachers as well, showing them how to incorporate that into their daily lessons in their classroom to get better results out of their students. So those are some of the ways that I teach it to the staff members. But then I also, through the Wellness Center on the campus at CV High School, I work with the students one-on-one and in small groups and do some of these hands-on activities with them as well.
You're listening to Education Insight. Jason, a lot of our listeners, me, I'm sure you included, have seen so many stories about young people and mental health lately. I mean, it comes from all directions. Politics, they're talking about it. When it comes to guns, they're talking about it. When they're talking about education, they're talking about it. And when they're talking about mental health, they're talking about the need for more mental health, especially for young people. Some of the stories we've seen on TV have been young men returning to their high school to commit terrible violence. A lot of the studies on young boys who commit these terrible crimes, shootings at school, showed that most of them had a severe lack of social skills and uniquely all felt very alone. So as someone who deals with the mental health of young people in school, do you see it as important right now to help a child if you see one who is not growing socially or that is beginning to isolate?
Absolutely. That's definitely one of the signs of somebody who is struggling in with their mental health. And I'll talk about that probably during the program, some of the signs and things that we can recognize as adults, as parents, as teachers, as people in the community. And certainly one of them is this isolation where a young person is spending the vast majority of their waking hours alone. And that's certainly not something that's great for a social creature, such as a human animal. And here we are, right? I mean, you and I are having this conversation about these important topics and things in life. And imagine just spending an entire day alone, day after day after day. It's actually not healthy for us to do that. So helping young people grow socially, social emotional growth and learning, it must be acknowledged and treated as important as the core subjects of English, math, science, and the like. And actually our social education and well-being, as well as our nutrition and physical health, are the common denominator, regardless of any career path that you go into. So it's certainly important that we recognize this on our campuses and then we provide opportunities for and space for these students to have an outlet and grow socially.
What are some of the biggest challenges that you and others in the field of mental health, especially as it pertains to students, what are you facing in regard to mental health right now?
I'd say the greatest challenge would be the stigma that mental health isn't valid. You know, we grew up, I grew up certainly in a different time where these resources weren't available, but that doesn't mean that we didn't need them at the time. And, you know, there's certainly even today, a lot of my students who I work with, they don't have the support from their families, from their parents. The families just say, you know, be tough. What do you have to stress about? You know, you don't have to pay bills, blah, 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 whatever it is. And so there's certainly a stigma around mental health and well-being that needs to be addressed. And we need to shed light on it, that everyone of every age can experience stress and anxiety and depression and isolation and all of these things. I'd say another would be resources and support for teens on school campuses. Some communities are providing some great resources and support, but many school campuses have little to no support for students. And I'd say the last would be access to trusted adults and mentors and trained peers, so peer intervention as well. So having access to those individuals.
Do kids and the instructors as well, do they come into the Wellness Center and say, I'm not doing well mentally, or are they generally referred to your center? How does that first interaction take place?
I would say both. I was able to work together with the other wellness center teachers in CV Unified School District, and we've come up with on our campuses a QR code that students can scan with their phone, and it takes them to a really clean Google form that they fill out and they can self-refer. So we get students who do self-refer with that using the QR code. And then I'd say probably some of the best are the referrals. And the best referrals are coming from teachers who notice that their students have changed, that something is wrong, and they don't have the skills, the resources, the time. And I understand as a classroom teacher, it's challenging, but they reach out and they say, hey, can you check on this person? And I'd say those are some of the best, because particularly one student I worked with recently, she said, how did you know that I needed to talk to someone? She said that. And I said, I've actually heard from a few people to pull you aside and check on you and see how you're doing. And she is somebody who actually felt like she was alone in the world, and she started crying.
What a great place to start. You start by saying people love you and they're worried about you.
Yeah, and it really just gives that person momentum. I just saw her entire posture, her body, her spirit lifted up just from hearing that other people actually care about her.
Jason, how did so many of our kids end up struggling with mental health issues to begin with? I mean, it can't be all because of the pandemic and lockdowns, or can it?
No. Teen suicide has been the second leading cause of death among that age group for many, many years now. There has certainly been a major uptick in teen and preteen depression and mental illness due to the pandemic, but it's certainly not all of a sudden, right? This is something that's been ongoing for a very long time. And I would say a lot of the media and the population and stars, athletes, a lot of people now, mental health is in the spotlight, and rightfully so. And I'm grateful that it is. And I'm glad that a school like CV High School and CV Unified School District, they're taking the charge. They're honestly leading the field in doing this and providing these services in these wellness centers.
What are some of the ways to detect if your own child, or if you're an instructor or administrator in a school, if your student might be experiencing mental distress? And before you answer that, we're going to take a quick break. We're talking about student mental health, what's being done, and how our local kids are doing. More with our guest, Jason Tate, and more education insight in just a moment. Welcome back to Education Insight and our discussion on how mental health issues are being handled in our local schools. Jason Tate is an expert in mind and body medicine, student mental health issues, and an intervention specialist who trains other counselors on how to proactively work with kids who are struggling. Jason, before the break, I asked, how can we detect when our child or student is experiencing problematic mental distress?
Certainly, I would say any major shift in behavior patterns, sudden drop in grades, withdrawing from friends and family, major shift in attire and physical appearance, and sometimes seclusion, but not always seclusion. Certainly a young person who all of a sudden went from being social and interactive to being completely withdrawn and on their own and by themselves for long periods of time. Those are some of the more clear and present signs that there might be something going on. Asking questions, preferably an open-ended question. I always like to say good is not a feeling or a state. Ask them how they're doing. Oh, I'm good. And then we end it there, right? It's an easy out for somebody to escape that. So you want to say something, if they say, oh, I'm good, you say, well, okay, so what's so good?
Yeah.
Right. And you leave that open-ended. Well, what's good? Tell me about it. I want to hear about it. And then you might get an honest answer out of them after that.
And what are you looking for? Give me an example of something you might hear a child say, which indicates to you, well, I got a red flag here. This is something that we should dig deeper.
Well, even if they say, oh, I'm good. And then you say, okay, so what's so good? And they say, well, I got to see my dad for the first time in 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. How often do you get to see your dad? And you just kind of ask a little more about that. What I'm listening to and what I'm hearing most often as a wellness specialist at the high school is all about relationships. That's what it always is, relationships and communication, whether it's a student's relationship with their teacher that is in, disrepair, or a student's relationship with their parents or guardians. There's always something going on there with a relationship when things aren't necessarily good.
And it's a good thing to say whenever your child does open up about something and you're not sure what those real deep feelings are, there's nothing wrong with saying, how's that making you feel? How do you feel about all that going on?
Mm-hmm. And a lot of listening. A lot less talking, a lot more listening, and asking those open-ended questions and listening. And like you pointed out, how does that make you feel?
What is the most interesting or successful program that you see currently working in regard to improving the well-being of our students?
Well, I would personally say that I started teaching nutrition to high school kids about 14 years ago, and that has been a fantastic resource for them to watch my students during the course of a school year improve their physical health and change not only their own diet and the way that they look at food, but also their families at home. Just providing honest, true, in-depth resources about nutrition education has been honestly one of the best things I've ever done in my career. I'd say another would be successful programs. We have here Safe House of the Desert here in the Coachella Valley, and they have many different programs that they can bring to the school sites all over the Coachella Valley. There's also Safe House, I believe, in the Inland Empire as well. And they have their What's Up app, which is a 24/7, 365 days a year texting app that is a free resource for all teens and young adults that they can reach out to a mental health professional and just talk about what's going on for them. The wellness centers that are showing up at different campuses, certainly in CV Unified. I don't know that there's many other campuses, at least in the Coachella Valley, that are doing this, but this is a huge leap forward in offering resources for improving the well-being of students.
Yeah. You're listening to Education Insight. Politicians keep telling us that we need better mental health services. So what do you think we need to do to support students who are at risk that is just not being done yet?
I would say, what I just talked about, adding these wellness centers or spaces on the campuses. Our school counselors are career counselors first. They're helping with scheduling, and yes, they're licensed counselors and they're not therapists, but the schools that offer therapists on their campuses and have wellness centers and individuals like myself trained in wellness and health, offering that is a gigantic leap forward in the right direction. But here's the thing. Kids in America, they spend the majority of their lives until they graduate on school campuses, which makes our schools the best place to support our youth and the future, right?
Yeah.
So this includes establishing the knowledge and practice around those three pillars of wellness: movement, nutrition, and mindfulness, And I'd argue that these three pillars are more important than the core subjects because they're universal to all humans and they provide a healthy foundation for our future.
Here at Education Insight, we have an extraordinary amount of teachers who listen to our program. In fact, I think this topic was inspired by a letter from a teacher in the Inland Empire who said we needed to talk about student mental health, but who wondered what teachers can do to provide a better environment or to help more so the students in their classes. How can teachers help with the mental health of their students?
I really love that question. I think it's my favorite question, actually, Lacey.
Good.
That's my favorite question. I would say acknowledging, understanding that anyone of any age experience a shift in their mental well-being, that it's okay to not be okay, that it does happen to people of all ages, even our kids who aren't paying the bills or whatever, that our students come to us with a lot of baggage, being patient, being kind, being understanding, and assume the best instead of the worst. When a student walks in late to your classroom, I spoke with a student recently who was teaching class, and I sat down and just talked with him, and I said, so why aren't you in class after a while? And he said, well, if I'm ever late to that class, the teacher gives me a really hard time, and I'm late today because I got into a fight with my mom, and I ended up late to school, and the last thing I need is my teacher yelling at me. And I think just understanding that our students are humans as well, and that they're dealing with a lot, and assuming the best instead of the worst. And I'll close with just saying, listen with an open mind and speak with an open heart when you are interacting with our students.
Good advice. Jason, do you see a lot of kids who were struggling because of the lockdowns, but they're getting better because of the help they're receiving at your center?
Yes and no. Well, definitely getting better for those that come to the center. I was fascinated, though, there's been a couple of students who I asked if they prefer being on campus, and they said no. And in exploring that, they said they feel safer at home because of what's happening sometimes in the bathrooms and some of the bullying that goes on campuses. They did get a rest from the bullying by being at home. So that was an interesting side note. But I'd say for the majority of students and just human beings in general, being in a social atmosphere, it's certainly better that we're all back on campuses and having the ability to learn from each other and grow socially, for sure.
May we see many more centers like yours on elementary, middle school, high school, and college campuses all over California.
Thank you. And I certainly would love for that to happen and would do anything within my power to help make that happen.
Jason Tate, he's an international speaker on health and wellness and the creator and an instructor for the Health and Nutritional Sciences Center at Coachella Valley High School. We're talking today about mental health and our students. Jason, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, and I appreciate everything. And may you and everyone else have a really wonderful fall and upcoming school year.
As we close out our program today, we introduce you to yet another great student of music. Maya Orendane always dreamed of playing music from the middle of a great symphony orchestra. She began studying music in a fifth grade choir class. Within a year, she was learning the flute, but today she's proficient in nearly all percussion, strings, and brass instruments. And she still loves to sing as well. Now a college student working on her degree in music from Cal State San Bernardino and performing with the symphonic band there, she's realizing that early dream. Hi, Maya.
Hi, Lacey.
Tell us a little bit about your music.
Yeah, I am currently a senior at Cal State San Bernardino, and I play the flute and piccolo for our large ensembles here. And I'm currently just exploring my capabilities on my instrument by participating in a lot of ensembles here, whether it be in an orchestra, a band, or even our mariachi ensemble. So I've just been exploring and figuring out different ways of approaching my instrument so that I can teach it to the newer generation.
Yeah. Has playing in a symphonic band turned out to be all that you dreamed it would be?
Oh, it's been that and much more. I mean, here I've learned so many things alongside with my fellow classmates, and just being in these different ensembles, it's just been amazing. I mean, we even were able to go to South Korea and perform over there, and it was just a dream. So I am very, very happy to have been part of the Yodi community here.
What do you want to do with that music after you graduate?
My plan currently is to head into the credential program here at Cal State San Bernardino. And after that, hopefully look into a master's program so that I can further solidify my skills as a musician and teach it.
Well, Maya, best of luck to you on all of your academics this school year and, of course, all of your upcoming performances. And thank you so much for sharing your music with us and taking our phone call today.
Thank you so much, Lacey.
And that wraps up another edition of Education Insight. We leave you with a musical piece from the Cal State San Bernardino Symphonic Band. This is a piece called A Mother of Revolution by composer Omar Thomas, featuring Maya Orendane, principal chair on piccolo and flute. I'm Lacey Kendall. Thanks for joining us.
Education Insight is produced in partnership with KVCR San Bernardino.
Our executive producer is Jacob Poor. And our production engineer is Tyler Beasy.
Alyssa Silva is our production assistant. And Lacey Kendall is your host.
Support is provided by Growing Inland Achievement, working together for inland education and economic success.
And by College Futures Foundation.
Join us again next time for
Education Insight.
you.